Alright, now it's about time we put algebra to use. Instead of always trying to find x and find y, let's put it to use when we can actually use this in real life. And here we go. It's the topic today. It's a two-parter. The first one is using algebra 2. Today's lesson will be rearranging formulas. The next day will be using algebra to do something else. So today is to rearrange formulas. And remember back in science when we did this formula here, the D stands for density, the M stands for mass, the V for volume. Density equals mass divided by volume. And we used to have questions like this. A block has a mass of 30 grams and volume of 10 centimeters cubed. What is its density? Remember, I asked you to always use a formula. There it is. Show the work and give me the answer. 3 letters helped you remember that. It was FWA. Hopefully you remember that. So, formula, work, and then the answer. The formula here is, and again, we use this FWA for whenever we have any formula, a word problem that involves a formula. So the formula we have is density is equal to mass divided by volume. Now, the next step of the work was to sub in what we know. I don't think I used the word substitute before, but now we know what that means, substitute, from the algebra stuff we did before. So, do we know what the D density is? What is its density? So we don't know what the density is, so we just leave density as D. Equal sign directly underneath. The mass, the M, the mass, do we know what it is? It says a block has a mass of 30 grams, so we do know the mass. It's 30 grams. Divided by the volume, and the volume here is 10 centimeters cubed. 10 centimeters cubed. And remember, the next step was to simply do the math. 30 divided by 10, which is 3. Use a calculator if you want. Line up the D's. D is equal to 3, and the units were, if you remember, density always steals the units from the question, grams per centimeter cubed. Grams per centimeter cubed. And that was your answer. The density of that block was that. Okay, I'm not going to ask you if it's going to sink or float, just getting you to jog your memory on how to use formulas. Now, what about if you had a situation like this? An object has a density of 1.5 grams per centimeter cubed and volume of 2 centimeters cubed. What is its mass? Now first we have to know the formula, and I'll give you the formula. I always will. The formula that we have for density, mass, and volume is this. This is all I gave you. Now from here, we're going to use our FWA, formula work answer. So again, formula is density equals mass divided by volume. The work we'll put here, we'll leave some space and we'll put answer, say, down here. Okay, so when we sub all our numbers in, do we have a density? Let's read this time. An object has a density of that. So we do have a density of 1.5. The density is 1.5 grams per centimeter cubed. That's messy, whatever. You get the idea. The 1.5 is the main number. The mass. Do we have the mass? Density of this and volume of this. Mass. What is its mass? We don't know the mass. So if we don't know what it is, it's some number. Let's just use M. It's an unknown thing. Volume of 2 centimeters cubed. So subbing in for V, 2 centimeters cubed. Now what? The density formula is set up to find what density is, but the way it's written here, it's not set up to show what mass is. So what we need to do is take this density formula and rearrange it. There's 2 ways to do it. One way is to first sub in the numbers, like we did here, And then what we'll need to do is sort of do some work on the side. Just rewrite this without the units. 1.5 equals m over 2. We want to rearrange this so that m, mass, is by itself. We want to figure out what is m, what is the mass. So just like algebra, we want to get the m by itself. How do we do that? Well, just like the rules before. What's bugging the m? It's being divided by 2. How do we get rid of this dividing 2? We multiply this side by 2. We do the same to the other side. So right now we're doing the algebra on the side work here. What happens to these 2's? They cancel out. You're left with just m, or mass. 2 times 1.5, use a calculator, trust me, it's 3. So we just figured out that the mass is 3. And we could throw this answer back over here. M is 3. Now, if it's a problem where it's asking for units, which it usually is, we have to know what the units are. And there's a grams there, so it has to be 3 grams. That's it. You could have done the work underneath here. I prefer to do it on the side. That's one way to do it. Okay, let's take a look at a different way of doing this same question. A different way of doing the same question, which you might like better. You pick and choose which method you like. You already know the answer is 3. It's going to show you a different method of how to get that. So we could first sub in the numbers and then rearrange, or we could rearrange first and then sub in the numbers. So here's our formula. Density equals mass divided by volume. Actually, let's erase this. We don't need this. We don't know what the formula truly is yet. So density is mass divided by volume. We want to know what the mass is. So this is those problems that I asked you to do before. You probably think, what's with this whole solve for A, solve for B kind of stuff? Here, we're trying to solve for what? Mass. So we're going to solve for M. We want to get M by itself. Well, what's bugging the M? The V is. What is it doing? It's dividing. How do we get rid of the V? It's dividing. Multiply by V. Do the same to this side. The V's cancel out. You're left with mass is volume times density. And then you can put that formula in here. It's actually nice to put what it's being equaled on front. We can call this mass equals density times volume, volume times density, doesn't really matter. It sounds nicer if you say density times volume. If you want, you can put a times sign or a dot or brackets, whatever you like. And then you just do the work. M, we don't know. The density we said was 1.5. The volume was 2. You times the 2 together. M equals 3 grams. So, either way, sub in first using the formula and then rearrange, or rearrange first, then sub in the numbers. It would be nicer if you, I think, long term, if you got used to this method where you rearrange the formula first, then sub in. You'll see why later. How about this question here? Remember this one? Pressure equals force divided by area. Pressure, force divided by area. If I apply that much pressure, 5 newtons per centimeter squared of pressure, over 12 centimeters squared area, how much force was applied? Okay, whatever method you like. If you want to put the numbers in first, then rearrange, or rearrange, then the numbers. I'm going to just rearrange first, then the numbers for this one. So we have this formula. We'll do it on the side here. P equals F over A. Let's first figure out what we need to do here. I'm given a pressure, so I know what the pressure is. I'm given an area. I know what that is. How much force was applied? I don't know what force is. So that means I have to solve for F. Solve for force. Solve for F, force. How do we get the F by itself? It's being bugged by the A. The A is dividing it. Let me get rid of all these things. The A is dividing it, so to get rid of it, we multiply by A. Do the same to the other side. What happens to these A's? Cancelled out. You're left with force on this side, and on this side, area times pressure. And so then you can use our formula work answer with that. Formula work answer, where force is equal to pressure times area, or area times pressure. Doesn't matter. If you're wondering how I went from here to there, it's the same thing. It just switched these two around. If you're freaked out and don't understand what I did there, then leave it like this. A times P equals F. Whatever, it doesn't matter. So now we plug the numbers in. Force, we don't know. We're being asked for force. So F, we'll leave it alone. Pressure, 5 newtons per centimeter squared of pressure. So 5 newtons per centimeter squared. Times the area, which is 12 centimeters squared. 12 centimeters squared. And when you times that all together, 5 times 12, use a calculator if you need to, the force is 60, and hopefully remember the units are newtons. Now, I'm not going to freak out about the units here, you might have forgotten. This is more about how to rearrange formulas. It's not about the sciencey unit stuff here. But it's good to know, and you should know actually, that force is measured in newtons. Okay, so again, that's one option. The other option we could have used was using this formula, plug in the numbers, put a 5 into here, and a 12 into there, and then solve for F that way. You would have got the same answer of 60. So pick your method. I'm going to go with this one for these examples that I'm going to do on the screen here, but if you like the other method, then go right ahead. Okay, here's a new formula. I equals P RT. First off, what are these PRTs doing to each other? Adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing. Well, there's nothing in between them, so that means multiplying. So they're all multiplying each other. The P times the R times the T. And again, in multiplying, it's in any order. I don't have to write it PRT. I could have written this formula I equals IPT, or TRP, or TP, or whatever, TPR. In any order. That's just the way it's normally written. What does this mean? I is for interest. P is for the principal. R is the rate. T is for time. And now, when you hear interest, you probably think of banks. And yes, you earn interest sometimes if you are saving money in a bank, or you might have to pay interest if you're borrowing money from a bank. The principal is how much money that you are saving or borrowing. That big chunk of money that you're either asking for or that you're saving. How much money you're putting in. The R is the rate or the percentage. And you need to convert the percent to a decimal. And the time is mostly in years. I'll tell you, well, you should actually convert this to years. If it's given in months, you should change it into years. So 6 months would be 0.5 years, half a year, right? Okay, so there's the formula. If you have the interest, you take whatever money that you're borrowing or saving, times by whatever rate the bank is giving you, times by the time in years. Simple interest formula. Okay, so here's a question. How much interest will I earn if I put $3,000 into a 4% savings account after 2 years of time? So how much interest will I get after 2 years? Interest. So in this case, we're getting interest because you're going to earn the interest because you, or I in this case, are putting in a big chunk of change, some money, into a savings account. So how much free money, how much interest will I get if I'm putting $3,000 into the bank for 2 years? Well, let's figure out the formula here. The formula is interest equals principal times rate times time. Now let's figure out whether I have to rearrange this formula or not. Is it good to go or not? I'm asked for interest. How much interest? Well, the interest is already by itself on this side of the equal sign. So this is going to be easy. All I got to do is sub in the numbers. I don't have to do any weird rearranging here. So it's already solved for I, the way this formula is written. So all I got to do is do the work. How much interest? I don't know how much interest there is, so just leave it as I equals. The principal is the big chunk that you're putting in or you're asking for. So it's $3,000. I like to use brackets for multiplying. R is the rate or the percentage, and the rate here or percentage is 4. You need to convert that to a decimal. 4%. Remember how to way you convert percents to decimals is you move the decimal 2 spots to the left. 1, 2. It's not 0.4, it's 0.04. The time in years is 2 after 2 years of time. So time we'll sub in as 2. And so that's my work. My answer, just going to have to punch it into a calculator. I'll bring it up this time. 3,000, 3, 1, 2, 3 zeros, times 0.04, so times 0.04. I'd press the equal sign after every pair of things. Times 2, times 2. And it's $240 interest. So my answer for interest is $240. That's how much free money I get to have just for giving my $3,000 to the bank after 2 years. Okay. That's a straightforward one. I think you can guess what I'm going to do next. Alright, let's take a look here. Same formula. Let's say Sam takes out a $6,000 loan. He's borrowing $6,000 from the bank, and the bank charges him 8%. So this happened in the past. The bill that I guess the bank charges at the end of all this was $840. That's interest in a bad way. He had to pay $840 interest. My question to you is, over how many years, or how many years did it take for Sam to pay off the loan? Alright, so let's see if our formula is good to go or if it needs rearranging. Remember, our formula is interest equals principal times the rate times the time. Here we are asked for years. Years would be time. Oh, the formula is not set up to give you what the time is. It's set up to give me the interest. The I is by itself, but the T is not by itself. So I'm going to have to do some side work rearranging over here. I'm going to rearrange interest equals principal times rate times time so that the T is by itself, because the question is asking me how many years did it take. That's time. So I want to do this, take this formula and solve for, why put R there, solve for T, solve for time. Okay, what's bugging the T? The R is. The R is multiplying the T. So to get rid of this R, I'm going to divide by R. Divide by R on this side. The R's cancel out. I'm left with, on this side, I over R, and over here, the P and the T. Now what are they doing with each other? Remember, they're all multiplying. They're just, so the P and the T are multiplying each other. That's not good. I still got a P bugging the T. And like I said, it's multiplying it. So I want to get rid of that P. It's multiplying the T, so we'll divide by P. Divide this I by P as well. So now underneath we got more people down there. Another P joining the R. The P's cancel out, and you're left with time, T, is equal to this. Interest over principal times the rate. That is our rearranged formula. So I should erase this and use this as the formula. That the time, I like to put what it's equal to in the front, is equal to the interest over the principal times the rate. So this. It's a little bit uglier formula, I understand, but if you need to, pause, rewind, see what I did here. I also I could have realized, hey, the T is being multiplied by a P and an R. Why can't I just divide both those in the same step? I could have divided by the P and the R here, and did the same divided by the P and the R over here, and I would have done it in one step. That's fine too. Okay, so there's the formula. Sub in our numbers for work. We don't know what the time is. Let's look at the question again. We don't know the time in years. I do know the split t because I don't know what it is. Line up the equal signs. The interest was 840. Reading the question. 840 will sub in for I. And the principal, the big chunk, $6,000. That's the principal. Oops. So the I was 840. The principal is 6,000. The rate is the percentage, 8%. 8%, remember, you move the decimal 2 spots to the left to change it into a decimal. 1, 2, it's 0.08. So I do that on a calculator. 840. Now here's how you do this. 840, it's divided by this and that. Actually, the smart thing to do would be to figure out what's on the bottom. 6,000 times 0.08. Should do that on the bottom first. So 6, 1, 2, 3 times 0.08. That gives me 480. So the stuff here is 480. Now I divide those two. 840 divided by 480 equals 1.75. That 1.75 is our answer. And what does that 1.75 mean? It means that's how many years it would take for Sam to pay off that loan if he had to pay that much interest. Okay. E equals mc squared, one of the most famous formulas in the world, Albert Einstein. What does this all mean? E stands for energy, m stands for mass, and c is for the speed of light. You'll learn about this, maybe Science 9, Physics grade 11, more so. So the question is asking here is solve for C. Get the C by itself. No word problem here, just solve for C. So this is just straight rearranging the equation. But there's something goofy about this C. It's squared. So let's see how we're going to handle this. We want to get the C by itself. The C is being bugged by this little 2. It's being squared, and it's being multiplied by m. Remember, this is a two-step problem. Reverse bed mass. Who should we get rid of first? The thing that's squaring it, the exponent, or the thing that's multiplying it, the m? Adding, subtracting, none there. Multiplying, dividing comes before the exponent. So first, we should get rid of this m, the multiplying thing, which happens to be an m, which also starts with m. Don't get confused. I mean, they don't mean the same thing. So let me just rewrite this again without the words in the way. We want to get the m gone. It's multiplying the c. We're going to divide. Do the same to the other side. The m's cancel out. And what are you left with? A mess, I know. This is E over m, or energy divided by mass. And over here you're left with c squared. We're not done. It's not, we want just plain old c, not c squared, plain c. There's a c squared here. How do we get rid of the squared? Well, like we always do, to get rid of something, we do the opposite. What's the opposite of squaring? The opposite of squaring, do I have on the calculator here? No, I don't. Maybe in the longer calculator I do. The opposite of squaring is this button right here, the square root button. Square root button. The opposite of squaring is the square root. So if I want to get rid of this square, I'll take the square root of this side. Whatever I do to this side, I have to do to this side. What this does is it cancels out, just like dividing after multiplying cancels out. The squaring of a square root is like doing the same thing back and forth, and you end up getting a c there. This, nothing you can do with that. That's your answer. The speed of light is the square root of energy divided by mass. And that's the formula rearranged. That's some pretty funky stuff, don't you think? Alright, here's the skill testing questions. There's 3 of them. So a car travels at 236 kilometers in 3 hours using the formula d equals v times t, where d is equal to distance, v is for velocity. The fancy word for speed. That's just a grade 8 definition of it. T is for time. So using that formula and that information, find the car's velocity. A formula that you've heard before: circumference equals pi, remember that thing is pi, times diameter. Circumference equals pi times diameter. So that's the formula, and we're told that a circle has a circumference, or c, of 22 centimeters and diameter of 7. What is pi? So figure out what is pi, or this little table thingy, to 4 decimal places. I'm guessing you have heard of pi. If you haven't, well, I'm telling you now. That little symbol is pi. Pi, not P-I-E. And the last one, if this is a formula, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, I want you to figure out or solve for b. Just tell me what is b equal to. No numbers, just rearrange this formula so that b is by itself. Okay, hopefully you won't have too much difficulty with this. I know it's a little bit tricky, but work at it. Bye-bye.